And we're live with another roundtable from Retail Wire. Today's topic is going to be about RFID Technology's best use cases for retail. We're going to dive into a little bit of the history of RFID, why it's taking so long, and why is now the time that a lot of retail leaders are talking about it. So my name is Chase Binney, CEO of Retail Wire, and I'll be moderating, kind of kicking off the conversation. And we have 4 guests today with us, and I'll go around the room. Let's kick it off with Melissa.
Sure. Hi, thanks, Chase. My name is Melissa Minko. I'm the Global Director of Retail Strategy for Digital Technologists, CI&T. Been with them for almost 5 years, and my role is really to identify new and emerging trends in consumer shopping behaviors, as well as industry trends in retail that brands should be looking out for.
Awesome. Glad to have you.
Glad to be here.
Let's go around the room. Jonathan.
Hey, everybody. My name is Jonathan G. Blanco. I'm the founder and CEO of NIFMint. What we do is we create digital twins of physical products for brands and retailers. Think of it as a digital certificate of authenticity. And so RFID technology is a big part of how we are able to do what we do.
Cool. James?
Hi, I'm Jamie Tenser, storyteller-in-chief at my firm, VSN Strategies, and a long-time commentator on Retail Wire. I pretend to know something about this industry, but more importantly, I've had the benefit of sharing ideas with people like the other panelists here about all aspects of retail.
And Roberto.
Hi guys, my name is Roberto Medina. I'm the CEO of Invento RFID. We're a company that specializes in RFID technology solutions for the retail industry. Basically, we provide end-to-end systems for inventory management and in-store advanced solutions. We've been in business about 2 years now, but I have experience with RFID for probably more than 15 years now. So happy to be here. Thank you.
Nice. Yeah, so a lot of experience in the room, so I'm excited to just dive into this. The big picture is how are retailers using RFID, and kind of the way I like to start these conversations is why, right? So what are the problems that retailers are facing that even, sparked this in the first place? And I know the history of RFID goes back a long time. But y'all are working with retailers now. You're hearing from the front lines and of leadership. What are some of the problems that retailers are facing related to RFID? Anyone can jump in.
First, I would because one of your questions was why RFID, and I think the best response is data. It is the gateway to providing visibility and access to an endless amount of inventory data and store information. Data is such an important word in the retail space, and RFID facilitates the access to that data. So that would be the why that I think is really important to address.
Yeah, I'll jump next. So RFID, as everyone knows, has been around for a long time, probably more than 20 years, but it really has become popular during and after the pandemic, right? When the need for data, as Melissa mentioned, was in dire need. So that's probably what really triggered the massive adoption of RFID, along with other initiatives from like big retailers like Walmart, Macy's, Nordstrom, which have these mandates for all their suppliers to start using RFID. So that all combined, along with the need for a more effective omni-channel fulfillment, I think is what is driving the massive adoption in retail right now.
Yeah, I'd love to approach it from the problem side. When you think about a lot of the big problems that brands face and retailers face, things like counterfeit goods, making sure a product is authentic. Counterfeit goods is a $3 trillion industry, for example, or the LCA, the life cycle of the product itself. Just inventory management, all these things. So a lot of the times you hear people talk about these new innovative things in technology and, how it might work and in this very hypothetical context. But when what you really need is some sort of RFID, NFC, arguably you could use a QR code, but it's not going to be as complete as having an RFID, of course, to make those things happen. So, you're going to start to see more and more, especially as in the European Union is mandating that all garments and goods have some sort of RFID, NFC, or QR code in them to measure the full life cycle of the product. That's to help prevent fast fashion and things just getting thrown away in landfill. Because as most of us know, actually fashion is a big part of, what's affecting or it's a harshness on the environment when products are created and just thrown away, right away. So.
I also think something important to note, we've all kind of alluded to it, is that this technology has been around for so long, and the fact that it's now a hot topic and more and more retailers are implementing it, I think just really speaks to the nature of the retail industry in a lot of ways. Think about AI. AI has been around for a very long time, but that's another extremely hot topic right now. And QR codes came out well before COVID, but no one was really adopting them. So in my opinion, that just kind of is how retail goes. Technology gets introduced almost a little bit too soon for it to be adopted, and especially for consumers to welcome it with open arms and understand the value in it. RFID is a little bit different because most of the benefits tend to be more business facing rather than customer facing, but it's just fascinating that this has been around for so long and only just now are as many retailers embracing it as they have been.
I think it's super interesting that you said it. I don't disagree with you. I think it's interesting that you said this. The benefits are business facing, versus customer facing. But what I love to add to that is that I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunities to use RFID to create customer facing benefits. So there's a ton of engagement opportunity that gets unlocked essentially when you have some sort of near frequency device inside of the product. So, hey, go ahead and wear this product and interact with this product and, give us your feedback or do something to either connect an app to the physical item to make that happen. Not to plug what we do, but that's an element of what we do with NIFMIT. But brands are very intimately aware of how people engage, on their website, on their application, when they make a purchase. But they have very, very, very limited understanding into what happens with the product post-transaction and post-purchase. If that product was ever worn ever, they don't know. So, when you have some sort of near frequency radio inside of these items, you now unlock that opportunity. And as a brand, you get to incentivize your users to interact with your products.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. On top of that as well, I think, one of the main reasons for the existence of this technology and its usage is for addressing inventory accuracy problems, right? Most of the average retailers that they don't use RFID, even one of the best ones, they don't reach beyond 65-70% inventory accuracy. So that drives a lot of problems, not just for the retailers, but also for the customers, even for the store associates. So there's a number of stakeholders that really get impacted by these issues, right? For example, for the customers, right? If you buy something online, you place your order, and the item is in theory available, and then 2 days later you get an email saying, "Hey, your item is out of stock. Sorry for the issue." Right? So that's a big disappointment and frustration for that client that probably will not buy again on that side of that brand, and will go with a different option. Same when they buy something online to pick up in the store, right? And they go and they cannot find the item, or they took forever to find it, right? So there is an aspect there that impacts the customer. On the retailer side, obviously that same issue represents a lost sale, right? Items got misplaced. There is a ghost stock problem, which basically means that your system inventory is not matching your physical inventory for whatever reasons. That could be many, right? So that's a big issue. There's also margin erosion from the fact that also not having visibility of your inventory can lead to have overstocks, and that obviously forces the retailers to issue frequent markdowns, and at the end of the day, reducing their margin, right? And then for the store associates, right? I mean, not using the technology or having to engage on tedious inventory counts is really a very demotivating factor, right? So they spend a lot of time, maybe 70% or more of their time, just searching for items, and that's not a good usage of their time, right? So that's a good opportunity as well for these folks to get a more meaningful type of job and get more motivated and spending more time dedicating it to the customers. So yeah, that's just an example of how single issue as inventory accuracy could create so many issues for a lot of different stakeholders.
I also feel that inventory accuracy is a very important reason for RFID to be implemented in the channels and product categories where it works. I don't really see it as a universal solution in every channel and every product category. I like to think about a supercenter store where RFID has enormous application in items on the general merchandise side of the floor, but perhaps less obvious value in the fast-moving consumer goods, consumables categories in the same store. And that presents quite a challenge for the store operator because maybe they need more than one sensing system to maintain inventory accuracy across the entire building, which adds complexity. Nevertheless, when you think about some of the higher ticket items, slower turning higher ticket items in the store, and apparel items in the store, RFID looks to me like perhaps the very best way to keep tabs on those products. I don't know that in the produce aisle it's going to have a lot of value. And there's, the old saw about this technology is that, well, it's not really great with canned goods because they have liquid and metal involved. That may be conquerable technologically, but not necessarily practically. So we have inventory management. I was going to use the word schemes, but I don't mean it that way. I mean it methods, right? Practices that perhaps involve gathering in-store sensing using more than one sensory apparatus, even in the same building. And that's the reality retailers face. Presents some investment challenges, some prioritization challenges. Maybe that has something to do with the slowness of adoption. I don't know if others agree.
Well, I would agree. I mean, at NRF about 2 years ago, there were presentations from Levi's and PacSun, global marketing teams, and they were talking about not being able to live without it at this point because it had created so much efficiency for them. And of course, from earlier comment, knowing what's on the floor, seeing that there's one of each size of a certain garment, for example. I think they made the comment that the youth today won't even ask if there's another size for them in the back. They need to see it right there in the front. But for the merchants, being able to have eyes on every store, it was giving the regional people a great view of what was going on in each individual store, and then helping them connect that more to the, the supply side and operational end. And they attributed their ability to install FRID to the lower cost of doing the shielding, because today you have the virtual walls, and that was this big change. That was the inflection point that allowed the cost to go way down, and then in turn to realize the efficiencies.
And Gwen, we didn't get your intro earlier in the call, so give a quick intro. I know you've written a lot about this topic.
Yeah, so I do some writing for the Robin Report. I ran WPP's global retail practice for 18 years, and I'm currently an independent consultant.
Nice.
This year at NRF, by the way, it was Skims and Fabletics praising RFID, saying their businesses have been totally revolutionized by it. Fabletics in particular was talking about reducing the rate of returns significantly because of the data it provided. But Jamie, to your thoughts, I actually would challenge a little bit the grocery space as not needing RFID as much, only because I think there's a huge opportunity there from the standpoint of dynamic pricing and how RFID can facilitate that, because you have expiration dates that you're dealing with. You have, a lot of times overstocking or understocking in grocery because it is so quick moving sometimes, or you need to encourage more turnover quickly. And so I actually see a really strong use case. I know the margins are obviously a lot smaller, but the cost of RFID has reduced so much too that I could see it being worth it.
Well,
Yeah,
and you can also look at intelligent labels and other ways to probably do that at a lower price.
Well, if I could answer back to that, I think we have a reality in stores with very broad merchandise assortments where we need not one magic solution for all, but a set of sensing solutions in order to create the kind of visibility in the store that begins to, match what we're used to or become used to on the digital side of the business. So there's some great examples where in a grocery department, I would absolutely like to see RFID used, and a terrific example from both a security and a, if you will, value ratio are bottles of laundry detergent, which have become a black market item and are tempting to thieves in some situations. Well, the value or the cost of loss or from those products suggests to me, well, yeah, I can see the value in factory tagging those bottles and using that as a loss prevention technique, or at least to augment it. On the apparel aisle, and I'm visualizing a supercenter store, managing color, size, and style for a sweater on a rack. I don't know another sensing method that can come close. It's either you count them by hand. I mean, the robot with the videos on it is not going to give you the picture about whether you have the right items there. The same robot, however, might be scanning other aisles, gondola aisles, to gather information that is actionable when it comes to inventory management. So I look at sensing as a set of solutions.
Yeah, it was also seeing where the product is moving is key, and that's where you've got to bring in those the visual shield to say it's going from the back room to a display, it's going to the cash wrap, it's going out the front door. And the comments from the retailers I mentioned, both Levi's and PacSun, saw a reduction in shrink because the employees were then aware that they can see now what's going out the back door versus what's walking out the front door. So there were just so many different, again, it's like all eyes on the store, seeing the living store in real time. And you say, where's really the value to seeing how that product is moving through the system? If 10 boxes were ordered, are 10 boxes being delivered, of what's in those boxes, and on, what's really making it onto the display, what's not moving, what is moving. It was so powerful.
Yeah, I want to jump in real quick, if that's okay. I actually, Melissa, I totally agree with you. I don't know if anybody's aware of the San Marzano tomato scandal. Anybody know about that? So we're talking about canned tomatoes in the canned food aisle. And you would have other producers basically saying that their tomatoes were San Marzano tomatoes, and that's from this area of Italy. So, when you think about things like authentication or, the provenance of where these food items come from, I definitely, agree with you, Melissa. I also like to say, I think it's really important to discuss things like through the lens of where you're at, right? So in the lens of today, at this exact moment in time, 100% this makes the most sense in your high ticket, high volume, luxury type of good aspects. But as retailers, as brands, as consumers become accustomed to interacting, with all these things, like I mentioned, with either the customer gets to interact with this and get engagement from a high level, I believe as we see consumer behavior, it tends to trickle down across other customer segments. So I even say, because I'll have people like, hey, do you think that, because like I said, we create a digital twin. It's like, hey, do you think that I'll get a digital twin of a white Hanes t-shirt? And I always say, not today, not tomorrow. Probably not even 5 years from now, but maybe 5 to 10 years from now. Yeah, because you become so accustomed to how you are receiving this type of information and these types of engagements that now it becomes a part of your everyday life. So that's how I think RFID starts to evolve over time. And whether it's the actual RFID or it's a variation of RFID, kind of to your point, James, that as that shifts off, some sort of near frequency radio that makes that happen.
The other thing, building on the comment, that there's a more human element that comes into play in the physical retail environment because there isn't the counting anymore. When you can take that burden off of the staff, I mean, who benefits from seeing people counting inventory? The customer is a big pile of merchandise, and the customer just wanders the other direction. Now the sales associates can be redirected. They can be deployed to interact more personally with the customer, excuse me, or the manager has the ability to look at hours in a more efficient way. Both.
Gwen.
Oh, go.
Sorry, I wanted to say that our colleague Marshall Kay sent a few comments prior to this conversation, and he kind of went to that point among several excellent ones. But he suggests, well, maybe if you always know what your inventory levels are, then those physical inventory counts that you have to produce on a periodic basis can be eliminated once you have confidence that you really know what you have and where it is. I think that's an excellent point. I think maybe a little bit aspirational now, but that seems realistically gettable for us. So sorry to interrupt you, Melissa, but
No, you're fine. Mine was a little bit off topic. I was wondering, Jonathan, if you could speak to the synergies between digital twins and RFID, because I think there might be some confusion around, like, can they work together? If so, how, type of thing.
Yeah, no, thanks. I appreciate you. I didn't tell her to tee that up for me, but
I really just want to know.
I appreciate that. Yeah, look, so I'm obviously a huge proponent of RFID. Our whole company is built off of the fact that we think RFID is a 95% solution, and meaning RFID is really great for tracking and for understanding the inventory and all these items that we've talked about. But one thing it will have trouble doing is a tie to ownership. Like who actually purchased this good, and how do you create that one-to-one connection between the customer and the holder of the good? And so that's the whole reason why we believe in creating these digital assets or digital twins of physical products. To get nerdy for a second, get technical, it is blockchain technology that we use. We use NFT technology to make that happen. And what most people's understanding of NFT technology was these trading card type elements where you'd have a monkey and it goes up in value and it's the price of a house. That's fun and interesting. That's all but a use case. But what we're talking about is a non-fungible asset, or basically something that cannot be changed. If it's non-fungible, it's unique, it's one of one. So to that point, let's go with a luxury good because it's the most easiest to explain. Is imagine that a person purchases a Prada purse, and when they purchase that Prada purse already has an RFID inside of it. You then get a digital twin of that Prada purse. So yes, there's a marketing element to it. Oh, I got this nice little neat image or video or whatever that be. But more importantly is that digital twin also has a unique identifier to it. So you then write the information across both. So the unique identifier in that digital twin is written to the writable side of the RFID, and then the RFID's ID is written to the digital. So now you have a forever one-to-one pairing. We believe that's the most important way to go about this, again, because now you have not only a tracking of this being authentic, but you have a proof of ownership and authentication of ownership as well to the user, so you can have a better communication with them.
Jonathan, is there a privacy issue for this?
Pardon?
Is there a privacy concern to this approach in some parts of the world?
I think yes, there's always going to be privacy concerns, but it's always going to be volunteered data. So you as a customer have to opt in to this. It's very similar to how any other application might work on your phone, where you you opt into that data. We recommend that that the brand has some sort of incentive as well with that. So yes, you get this nice shiny digital object, but yes, you're incentivizing your customer to engage with you via that object. So like I mentioned, the brand not understanding what happens from purchase to them using it. Imagine getting a simple notification or a message that says, hey, wear this Prada bag to the restaurant and get points, cash back, or whatever marketing behavior wants to get introduced. You now can start allowing for that opportunity. But yeah, in regards to privacy, that all is one of the nice things about this is that, of course, it's all encrypted data, but again, it is volunteered information that's there. So if someone doesn't want to do that, of course, they don't have to. So yeah, that's how we think about that.
Same goes for standard RFID tags. These tags could be deactivated when the purchase is completed, and those codes, the electronic codes that are embedded into the tags, they don't provide information about the client or anything like that. So it's also like an education process to disclose to the customer that they are not going to be tracking their name or their location or anything like that. It's just a run. If someone scans that item, it's just going to show a random number, and that number could be tied to the product, but that's it. There's nothing else that they can get out of that information.
Roberto, I'm glad you mentioned that. Years ago, and I hope my memory is accurate, I believe it was Metro in Germany was testing early RFID technology, and it raised this issue of if the item's individually identifiable and connected to a transaction, what unnecessary information does this expose about the shopper? And I believe that deactivation at the checkout was part of the solution that was discussed then. I don't know if you're familiar with that instance, because it's a long time ago, as I recall. But in the Europe's rules, there's a lot more sensitivity than we have in most of the United States. Perhaps Canada comes close. So if deactivation is assured for, let's say, for non-luxury items, I mean, I can see the incentive that you just described. It'd be great if something I paid a lot of money for, I had this continuous assurance of its authenticity, and that might be worth paying for. I don't mind if I buy a luxury watch. There's a serial number in the back there that identifies it uniquely. However, I maybe wouldn't want a retailer to or a manufacturer partner to be able to look at the transaction and understand what just went out the door with me. So is that deactivation at checkout, is that becoming common practice to your knowledge?
So the technology has evolved a lot in the recent years. So there's multiple ways actually to protect the client now, right? So that deactivation is one way, but you can still, there's other benefits and interest on maintaining that information, especially for like the examples like Jonathan provided, to track the ownership of that item. You can actually track an item all the way through its life cycle. End of its life cycle if the tag is embedded on the item, not just on the hand tag. But again, there are other ways to still make that tag and that information secure. And you can use permalogs, you can use encrypted information, passwords, and again, all those systems are like a closed loop system, so it's not like anyone can just scan one item and get to the transaction. Exactly. And everything will have to be beyond that. It's a closed system, right? So it's not accessible to anyone to just go and scan an item and they will get all the information behind that code. So it's evolved. It has evolved a lot in the recent years.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like a digital certificate of authenticity in that regard with what we do, and then to what you're talking about, you're right. Like it's all all encrypted, all walled garden type of stuff. And now, Roberto, you can probably speak more to this, being that you're like in the actual RFID element. But I think often we give RFID a little too much credit. Like it's not BLE, it's not Bluetooth Low Energy, where it has like a extreme range. So like if I'm wearing a t-shirt that has an RFID on it, and it's not like, it's probably pretty unlikely to get picked up by something unless I walk right by wherever that scanner or that reader is. Trust me, I wish sometimes I wish it was easier, because like the how we're building the tooling is you literally have to put the phone right up to it. So I would love it if it was a little bit wider range. But again, to Roberto, and I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on this, or how you see this, is you can basically again make that available or unavailable in how you design it.
Yeah, no, that's right. And there's also some technical constraints about the technology that, for example, if I'm wearing a shirt that has an embedded tag, just the fact that the shirt is attached to my body in a way, and my body has fluid, which is blood, that the liquid will block the signal, right? So that's just something that not too many people think about. But yeah, when we have to do other type of systems for like acid protection, those things come in place, and yeah, those are things that in a way are helpful for preventing these type of situations from happening, right? But yeah, I mean, as I said before, there is really no. I mean, you will need to have scanners located in multiple places and watching constantly these tags, and that's not the case. This RFID is not a GPS system, right? You need to have a scanner in a close proximity, and someone has to aim at you to basically, be able to read those tags. So again, there's a lot of probably confusion, and still because the technology hasn't been completely understood by many folks, and there is a lot of misconceptions about what is it and what is not.
For that, then, for the post-purchase, so because there are cases where RFID extends past the purchase, and that helps with returns and potential avoidance of landfills and stuff like that. How does that factor into this privacy conversation then? And when are the locations being registered if presumably people don't have these scanners in their homes and stuff like that?
Yeah, the best thing here to do, and from some of the experiences that we had, is that you always need to disclose these things. The more transparent you are, the better off this will roll out. So, and obviously the customers need to know that the items that they are buying will have an RFID tag, and what are the implications of doing that, and also what are the benefits of having your tag or your item with a RFID tag, right? You can make the return process a lot more faster and effective. You can get your money back like in no time if you obviously return the item with a tag. So yeah, again, to me, it's more like an educational kind of thing that eventually people will realize that this is not necessarily going against their privacy, and the benefits will by far offset the potential concerns, and it will be a massive adoption. Also, the new generations, they love to interact with their products. They love to have everything digitized, and it's just a trend, right? So eventually, I think those issues will kind of fade away. People are also understanding, and they are more concerned about talking about the digital twins that Jonathan was mentioning, right? The digital products is a solution that is kind of along the way, and is meant to address a large issue that the apparel and fashion industry has, which is the linear concept about how you buy something, wear it, and then dispose it or waste it, right? So trying to build like a circular approach where you buy something and then you are able to get it to the end of its life cycle in the right recycling way, and if without this technology, you won't be able to do a massive way of recycling items, because to recycle apparel, you need to sort it by materials, right? So you get a ton of items into the recycling factory, and you don't know what is what. And you have an army of people trying to figure out what material is which. Then it's almost impossible to get to that point that also now regulation is mandating that there has to be responsibility from the producers to make sure that all the items that they are producing have been properly recycled. That regulation is already effective in Europe, and now it's being launched in some states in the US. I think California and Washington has already passed those laws. So it's becoming not just a nice to have for the consumer information, to be available, but it's also becoming a regulation now.
Yeah, Melissa, your question there, that's why we always say RFID is like a 95% solution, is because, you know, into what Roberto was just saying there, if you don't have engagement points with your customer post-transaction, but then you magically expect them to take that garment and recycle it with you or recycle it somewhere else, just the probability of that happen is, to me, seems incredibly low. Whereas if you build those engagement points from transaction to the end of life of that product, now you've basically been incentivizing them along the way to use it. And so now you can also incentivize them to get rid of it or to recycle it. So you know, for us, is if just simply putting an RFID out there doesn't solve the problem of really understanding its full life cycle if it just gets thrown in the trash anyway.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm super passionate about how apps can build that bridge with this data and also incentivize consumers to have stronger loyalties to certain brands. So if you did link the RFID system to the app, and the app could then reward them for checking back in that they, you know, discarded the product. Like, let's say with Madewell jeans, you can get a $10 credit for bringing your jeans back to the store and recycling them that way. But if you check it in through the app and with the RFID system, it just creates this like seamless digital record of all of it.
100%.
I just saw a question about how RFID can help with returns. So first of all, RFID provides item level visibility. So that's a huge thing to make sure that mismatches are avoided. So a lot of the returns of products, especially bought online, are because they don't match exactly the product that they requested, or the size, or something that it was not what the client required. So that's a major cause for reducing to reduce returns, right? So the other way is that it helps also with fraudulent returns. There's a lot of organized crime retail organizations that they steal assets from one store and they return them in other stores, right? And if you don't have a way to know that this was an item that was actually paid, then, I mean, just to provide a good service, you will take it back, right? So that's a big issue. And with RFID, obviously, you can scan that item when the client returns it, and then you will notice right away that the item hasn't been paid. So yeah, there is again a lot of opportunities to reduce not just returns but also fraud.
And what Fabletics had said at NRF was they could see through RFID which products were most frequently being bought and then returned, and that data can tell them, you know, is it a sizing issue? Is it a colorway issue? Is it, yeah, people don't like the product, or do they end up buying something else? So it's just access to information, which is fantastic. And that helps reduce return rates because they can change their production schedules based on that information.
Yeah, and then expanding on the fraudulent, on counterfeit goods too, right? So like if someone returns an item and it does not have an RFID in there, but it looks identical, it's like, hey, wait a second, you know, we're talking with one of the very large, you know, cup manufacturers, and they have a problem where they have products that are sold by others on Amazon, and then people will try to return it directly to them, and they say that the fakes are so good that sometimes they have trouble recognizing if it's theirs or not. So
that happens with sneakers a lot. You know, they do a big drop, and it was unbelievable. The fellow who's responsible for fraud reduction, I think it was at Adidas, would say, you know, they drew a sneaker drop and it just sells out immediately, and then the next day it all comes back and it's counterfeit. So that's all, you know, that's been in the works. They're ready to press the button. So I don't know why the RFID wouldn't have been, you know, a part of their production.
Can RFID tags be counterfeited? Can the tags themselves be counterfeited?
They can be cloned. Can RFIDs themselves be counterfeited? Yeah, they can technically be cloned. So there are and Roberto, I'm sure, can speak to this way better than I can. There are improvements happening. And remember that, NFC is like a type of RFID, et cetera. So, there are improvements happening. But yeah, I'd love to hear what Roberto thinks on that.
Yeah, I mean, there is like some standardization on how to protect these tags. So there is permalocks, which is a standard already on how to lock that information, and encryptation. I mean, the reality is that all these technologies, regardless of which one it is, there's always going to be people that will try to figure out a way to do a fraud, right? So I cannot say that the technology is 100%, proven to not be able to clone. But again, as technology also advances and people understand that there is these type of issues, new solutions are coming out. So I wouldn't say necessarily that that's a big issue at the moment.
I am
like
curious.
Years a little bit, maybe also talk about other hot topics that are related to this technology, and that has to do obviously with AI. But I want to make sure that people also understand that AI is a great technology and is making a huge revolution. But AI relies a lot on data, right? And data, as Melissa mentioned initially, is what drives basically everything, and especially in closed loop systems like in stores or warehouses. You're not going to the internet to grab data about your system. You are pulling your own data, right? So if you don't have accurate, reliable, clean data, I mean, AI, it could be the best AI in the world, but it's still going to crunch numbers that are not reliable, and it will give you whatever outcome that is not meaningful. So there is a tight connection there with the RFID, because RFID can provide rich, abundant, and accurate data, which it gets processed to AI, and then it will provide you like great insights about your business, about forecasting, how the consumer is interacting with your product. There's so many applications that you can do with AI if you obviously got already data. So yeah, I'm happy to also hear other opinions on how you guys think AI is tied to RFID technology.
Well, we're seeing this.
I'm sorry, I
We're
was just
seeing this
saying
gap. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, the gap, I'm just going to point out that the gap that we're seeing now is that with AI, there's this gap between, okay, now we have this smart data processing power to be able to do something with more data. Now let's get our data in order so we can use AI.
Yeah, there's an interesting statistic here that I got it from Gartner, that by 2027, 60% of the Gen AI projects will be abandoned after proof of concept because of poor data quality or just lack of usable data sets. So, I mean, that just speaks about how important is the quality of the data in any AI project.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Gwen?
Well, I was going to say it's almost like this Back to the Future moment, for RFID, because it's overlooked so in context of some of these other emerging technologies. And it's not to say that you shouldn't be looking at AI, but when you're saying, well, we have the solution, what problem is it to solve for? It seems very apparent to me that when you're looking across an entire from operations into, inventory, into shopper facing, and even to checkout, with like the Uniqlo demonstrated that a couple of years ago in their Fifth Avenue store, like how dazzling was that you can just check out so fast, not stand in line. How many times you walk in a retailer and you see the line and you walk out of the store because you don't have time to stand in the line. So there were just so many immediate, applications that this RFID is solving for today that, I think you have to look at, how you bring all these different technologies into your system and put them into, which is the mad money that you're saying, how do I go out and experiment with something versus how do I put something into place today that's really going to create the optimization and efficiencies on so many different fronts and have a positive impact on the shopper experience. It seems.
the Zara by me uses RFID, and you just hold it
Yeah.
up to the wall, and then it registers how many items you have and which items, and assigns you a fitting room. And that is definitely the biggest pain point at most Zaras is how long
Right.
you have to wait for a fitting room. So to your point, Gwen, it's solving an immediate need and an immediate issue. And now I'm not intimidated and annoyed going into that store anymore because I know I'll get a fitting room right away.
I mean, I think my local
Exactly.
library does this. You set the stack of books and it
Sure.
pulls up which books are in the stack.
RFID is a great application for libraries. I think it's an excellent example. So.
Speaking of these smart fitting rooms, there is a pretty cool statistics here about so the shopper that goes into a fitting room has 7 times more chances to buy an item than one that doesn't go in there. But once they are in there, they're on their own, right? They don't have any other information, or it's just sometimes frustrating to, if you try something and you don't have a way to, I mean, you have to change again if that doesn't fit well and try to get another size. So, I mean, just having this technology available inside of the fitting rooms, they can, interact with you. You can find out in real time if there is the same item in a different size in that store, and get also personalized recommendations about what other items could go with the garment that you're trying at that time. It's just a world of possibilities for cross-selling. Obviously, it's like you're buying online, but in a physical store, right? So the conversion rates go up like 10 to 15%. But again, there is a lot of added layers of benefits that are can get just beyond inventory management. But just to give a quick advice for everyone, so always the technology is still a new technology, and as anything, you need to go step by step. So it's always good to start with the basics. If you don't have inventory management for omnichannel fulfillment, that's where you start. That's where you get the biggest bang for the buck. And once you get that in place, then you go after customer experience with smart fitting rooms, recommending displays, loss prevention systems, even real-time visibility, which is having the overhead antennas within the stores that are basically monitoring everything that happens within that store. Like every 30 minutes, you get information about who has by what items have moved from where to where. A lot of items that you don't know about your store until you start to see all this information coming through. So a lot of opportunities there, and obviously the ROI will just get bigger and bigger as you start to add more layers. And it's important that there is a cross-functional approach to this as well, because the benefits are so much across the entire supply chain that, again, if someone is not in a company not participating, they're missing opportunities to obviously generate more ROI.
What are you seeing in the industry right now? Are retailers using some of it and then they're looking to amp that up and add more uses? Or are they starting with nothing and they're adding inventory management or adding these building blocks in?
Most of the clients start with inventory management. That's the thing. There's other clients that they are starting with loss prevention, but once they realize that they can leverage the inventory management, they rapidly adopt it. But again, that to me is the main reason, and that's what where the main ROI will come from, because it's also the biggest investment, if you want to, call it in that way, because the tax are probably the more is the recurring investment that you will need to have. And then once you do that and you figure out the tagging process, which is normally recommended to happen at the manufacturer, then the rest of that is a lot easier. It's just adding something on top of the base of the pyramid, and the benefits just multiply from there.
Well, do you ever find that the organizations that will benefit from RFID across different functions struggle internally to decide which function area pays for it?
For sure. Yeah, that's a big topic. That's why I always recommend that these initiatives, they need to be sponsored by an executive level, and that's also a big reason for the companies that do this right to be successful. if this normally starts, if this starts at an area that is kind of isolated, it will really get the full benefit and the value that it needs to get, right? So the best cases are the ones that are sponsored by the executive teams, and there is obviously alignment on the objectives, because at the end of the day, any technology, when it's incorporated into a company, it's a change management approach, right? So you need to consider not just the new technology and what implies it, but also the people, the training. There's always going to be resistance to use something, but if you explain the benefits, what is in it for all the areas and the employees and everyone, how this is going to make their lives a lot easier, there's obviously more chances for them to adopt it. So, but yeah, alignment at a high level and the sponsorship from executive teams are definitely a big recommendation.
Do you think that's why it's taken so long to adopt? Because it's such a cross-functional benefit, and you'd have to really justify.
Probably that's one of the reasons. Sometimes it takes, especially in larger corporations, it becomes like a bureaucratic process because you need to get approval from many different areas. But at the end of the day, I think even the large corporations are realizing that this is a no-brainer, and they're all going after. So I think there is also still some resistance, thinking that our RFID is a very costly investment, and it used to be many years ago, but it's not anymore. But the people that probably tried this in the past days look at the numbers and they didn't add up, so I say, forget it, I won't do this. But now the cost of the tax have reduced dramatically, man. From 10, 15 years ago, they were like 50 cents, 80 cents. Now they are like 4 cents, so that's really very, very cheap. Same for hardware. The antennas are probably half the price, if not less. So, and obviously the massive adoption is making, I think that the chips will continue to be probably even less expensive as more and more adoption happens. I think that the growth rate of chips right now is like 20% compound annual growth rate. So it's huge. It's growing dramatically, especially in the years after the pandemic. I think right now the consumption of chips is close to 70 billion chips a year, something like that.
So do you think there's a natural progression for some retailers where inventory management is the first reason it probably is being applied to relatively valuable merchandise, and when that investment is amortized, the incremental investment for faster moving, less expensive product becomes easier to contemplate, but it's hard to bite off that whole thing in one.
You gotta do it like phased out, definitely. And even for retailers that don't start just online, having the systems to kind of validate what they are selling is there. This is where most of they get the first benefit. And once they start to grow and they expand into physical stores, obviously you open a new realm of possibilities there for like customer experiences, right?
Yeah, where we recommend, someone might introduce this is actually in the sampling side of things, and where we've actually had some interesting conversations have been with the product development or the product teams within brands. So anybody who's a brand or retailer or has worked with them, knows like a big problem that can happen actually is during the sampling process. As you get all these samples sent to you, you get different colors, different variations. Sometimes they just get sent literally to the office, and then different people are trying them, and one person takes one home by accident, or it gets moved to another spot, and now all of a sudden you're kind of mismanaging all these things now, and it's not just like 1 to 2 samples. We're talking 5 to 10,000 SKUs each season with product variations. So, we recommend that if a brand wanted to try RFID, and digital twins, but at least RFID, a really good way to do it is within your sampling system. Like maybe pick one of your manufacturers and just try, even just do a small little test across that.
One other thing that to Jay's question, one of the reasons that we found that is very common for people to not adopt this technology yet is because they think that their inventory accuracy is good enough, right? But the truth is that they don't know. They think, oh, when we ask them, what do you think your inventory accuracy is?
We've heard the same argument for computer automated ordering systems as well. Oh,
Right.
we think we're really good at this, but it turns out maybe not so much.
Yeah, but they think it's close to 90%. And when we measure it through the pilot, it comes out like 50%. And that's when they have it's an eye opener for them to realize, oh man, we thought we were better than this, right? So, and again, it's just sometimes perception not having enough data to validate how the systems are operating.
Well, that was Melissa's opening point, right? The data is the value.
Right.
I like this. Is this a term, or did Marshall coin that? RFIQ.
Ah.
I heard
By the
that.
way, Marshall's been offering some excellent comments in the chat here. I'm going to make friends with him after we're done here. I love the term, Marshall. Thanks for that.
We're getting to the end of our time here, but any wrap up takeaways or anything either that you brought in or that you learned on this roundtable?
It's just maybe a final message to the retailers. So RFID is not a luxury anymore. It's essential to be competitive, and the barrier to entry is much lower now, and the opportunity cost of not investing is higher. So they need to look at this technology as in that way. Otherwise, they will think about it too much and really not go after this, right? And with careful planning, RFID implementation can pay for itself really quickly and continue to yield benefits year over year, which is a really good benefit.
Very good. Excellent.
Yeah, my closing thought is essentially, if you think of every wave of technology that's hit commerce, there's this really, really early adopter phase. But to Roberto's point, we're well past the early adopter phase of RFID. So it's still early, but it's not early adopter. So it's proven itself out. And I think the bet against RFID is a harsher, it's something that you don't want to be wrong in, because if you do get that wrong, your competitors are basically going to advance at a rate exponentially that'll be hard to come back from.
No, I guess Kohl's is a poster child for that one.
Unfortunately, do indeed. Well, what I like about this conversation most is the range of use cases that we've covered, and I think it's not even close to the entire set that's potential. So for me, I came away learning a couple of things today, which I'm grateful for.
And I like the differentiation between digital twins and RFID. I thought that was an important distinction to make.
Very well.
And I think Gwen loved it too.
She's a busy lady. So
The
anyway.
truth is, like, this barely scratched the surface, and the amount of interest for even being on the roundtable, I think I still hear Gwen. But the amount of interest to being on this particular episode was so high, it's almost like we needed part 2 and part 3 to keep this going, because it's not just that we just love this technology, we love chips. It's that we love the data and what that actually empowers the retailer to do. So there's so many use cases for having accurate data. It's kind of like a foundational piece, and it's just one of the technologies that allows retailers to have accurate data. All right. Thank you all for being here.
Very well. Thank you very much for having us.
We'll see everybody on the next one.
And Glenn,
Bye-bye.
thank you, friends here as well.
Have a good one. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.